In the shattered aftermath of the Second World War, as Europe lay in ruins and the full scale of Nazi crimes came into view, the victorious Allied powers faced a question without precedent: how to bring justice to those responsible for a war of aggression and for atrocities committed on an industrial scale. The answer took shape in the bombed-out German city of Nuremberg, once a symbol of Nazi spectacle, now chosen as the site for an international tribunal. In November 1945, representatives of the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, and France convened the International Military Tribunal to try leading figures of the defeated Third Reich. Their goal was not revenge, but accountability under law, and the belief that even in the wake of total war, justice must be seen to be done. The legal foundation of the trials was established by the London Charter of August 1945, which defined three main categories of crimes: crimes against peace, involving the planning and waging of aggressive war; war crimes including violations of the laws and customs of war; and crimes against humanity, covering murder, enslavement, deportation, and persecution of civilian populations. This framework was revolutionary, asserting that individuals, not abstract states, could be held criminally responsible for actions taken in the name of government. The tribunal rejected the defense that following orders excused criminal conduct, marking a decisive shift in international law. 24 major Nazi leaders were indicted, though not all would stand in the dock. Adolf Hitler, Heinrich Himmler, and Joseph Goebbels were already dead, having chosen suicide over capture. 21 defendants ultimately faced trial, among them Hermann Göring, once Hitler's closest associate, Joachim von Ribbentrop, the former foreign minister, Wilhelm Keidel, head of the German Armed Forces High Command, and Albert Speer, the regime's chief architect and armaments minister. The proceedings opened on November 20, 1945, in courtroom 600 of the Nuremberg Palace of Justice, a building damaged but still standing amid the devastation of the city. The trial was conducted with careful attention to procedure and fairness. Each defendant was provided with legal counsel, the right to cross-examine witnesses, and the opportunity to present a defense. The prosecution relied heavily on captured German documents, films, and photographs, many produced by the Nazis themselves. These records revealed the planning of aggressive war, the systematic exploitation of occupied territories, and the machinery of terror that sustained the regime. One of the most powerful moments came when footage from liberated concentration camps was shown in court, confronting the defendants and the world with undeniable evidence of mass murder. The defendants' responses varied. Some, like Göring, attempted to justify their actions as necessary acts of state, arguing that they had acted in Germany's national interest. Others claimed ignorance of the worst crimes, or insisted they were merely administrators with no control over policy. Albert Speer accepted a measure of responsibility, acknowledging moral guilt while denying knowledge of the extermination camps, a stance that set him apart from most of his co-defendants. The tribunal weighed these claims against the documentary record, which demonstrated how deeply many of the accused were involved in the regime's criminal system. Beyond individual guilt, the Nuremberg trials addressed the nature of the Nazi state itself. Several organizations, including the SS, the Gestapo, and the Nazi Party Leadership Corps, were declared criminal, establishing that membership in such bodies could itself be evidence of participation in crimes. This ruling aimed to dismantle the structures that had enabled mass violence and to prevent their re-emergence in post-war Germany. At the same time, the tribunal avoided declaring the entire German population guilty, emphasizing the distinction between leaders who planned and directed crimes and civilians who lived under dictatorship. On October 1, 1946, after months of testimony and deliberation, the tribunal delivered its verdicts. 12 defendants were sentenced to death by hanging, including Göring, Ribbentrop, and Keidel. 3 received life imprisonment, and 4 were given prison terms of varying lengths. 3 defendants were acquitted, a decision that underscored the court's commitment to evidence rather than collective punishment. Göring avoided execution by taking his own life the night before the sentences were carried out, but the remaining condemned men were executed on October 16, 1946, bringing the main trial to a close. The impact of the Nuremberg trials extended far beyond the fate of the accused. For the first time, the international community had held a formal judicial process to account for crimes that shocked the conscience of humanity. The trials established principles that would later be affirmed by the United Nations, including the idea that crimes against humanity are punishable wherever they occur, and that no one, regardless of rank, is above the law. These principles became the foundation for later tribunals addressing atrocities in other conflicts, and for the development of international criminal law. The trials were not without controversy. Critics argued that they represented victor's justice, noting that only defeated leaders were tried, and that some actions by the Allies were not examined. Others questioned the retroactive application of certain legal concepts. Yet even these debates highlighted the trial's significance, as they forced the world to confront difficult questions about law, morality, and responsibility in times of war. Over time, the core achievements of Nuremberg have been widely recognized as a necessary step toward a more accountable international order. In the ruins of post-war Europe, Nuremberg stood as a symbol of both devastation and resolve. Amid broken buildings and shattered lives, the tribunal affirmed that mass violence and organized cruelty would not pass into history without judgment. The trials did not heal the wounds of war, nor could they restore the millions of lives lost, but they set a powerful precedent that justice, even delayed and imperfect, remains essential in seeking accountability in the aftermath of catastrophe. The Nuremberg trials reshaped the meaning of justice in the modern world and left a legacy that continues to guide the pursuit of human rights and the rule of law.